a lot of the times when people want to scale, they want to make more money, right? They assume, okay, the issue is with the company. Very few times will someone actually turn around and say, you know what, the issue's with me.
We all have our versions of 100%. Some of us have never actually hit that 100%.
You can go for the one that's going to do 2-3 million, or you can just do the thing that's going to bring you 100 million.
It's a mind hack. Really, you've taught me out here is how to hack my mind. Just if you're not clear what LBD is.
What do you want to be? Are you just trying to make some money? Or are you trying to be the best? This is for those who are actually like, you know what? I can operate at a far higher level. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Guys, welcome back to another podcast episode of CEO with a CEO. Alhamdulillah. So I'm joined here by one of my clients, a special client, one of my beloved ones. You know, we have many clients and, you know, I would say favorites, but, you know, what would come after that normally someone would say, I don't have favorites, but I definitely do have favorite clients. Right? But one of my favorite, of course, clients, Sherry. Sherry, talk to us. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh. My name is Shehryar. If you guys are looking for a body shop that can handle most insurance companies, as well as if you're looking for a place to fix your fender benders in the Costco parking lot, or if you're looking for a place where you can paint your car for an inexpensive price, if you have a 5 to 10-year-old car, come to Mako, especially Mako, New Jersey, where I own pretty much every location in Jersey. So stop by. And I came here to see my brother Fawaz. Been a client of his now for about 7 to 8 months, but I really took his program, especially his new program, seriously, Live by Design. And not gonna lie, I was a little skeptical about it at first, but he convinced me to come out to Dubai for 2 weeks. And I am leaving tonight, and I can say I have absolutely zero regrets about the program.
Allah barik, man. You're going straight in. I was gonna bring him in slowly. You're going straight for the kill.
I mean, dude, I spent 2 weeks with you. Like, I'm ready for the kill. Like.
Allah barik. So let's take it back. 8 months ago, when you got started, alhamdulillah, and guys, just 5 branches, right?
Yes,
5 different stores. Yeah, 5 different stores, right? So Allah barik, you're no beginner to the entrepreneurship game, deep in, all the way from your father to right to yourself, in the blood, Allah barik. But yeah, talk to us about where were you 8 months ago, right? 8 months ago was peak performance mastery. You came in as one of our earlier clients, you know, as soon as we dropped. How did you even find us? Let's start there.
I found you on YouTube. I found you on a random podcast. I think I was just Googling the solutions to my problems, especially on YouTube. I had a serial YouTube addiction. But I found your podcast, and subhanAllah, you started talking about all of the right things that us business owners needed to hear. You see, before meeting you, a lot of my life was based off of randomness. So it became to a point where, you know, I'd wake up and whichever direction the day was going to take me, and I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs can say the same, that are in my position, that, you know, you wake up, you check out what you have, and then you just start doing one thing and you stick to it without realizing if it's an important thing or not. And over time, what often happens is that compounds on itself. And then things blow up and you start running into a phase where you're constantly fighting fires, right? And sure, you're making money during the process. You're always making money, subhanAllah, just not giving up. But you're just living a chaotic life. You're always stressed out. You're tired. You're a little bit burned out. It affects your mood. You know, I'd come home from work and I would just not be in the best mood. So there was a lot of chaos and the word you would describe entropy within my life. And that's when I found you on YouTube in your peak performance mastery program.
You're doing well, right? You're doing significantly well. You're doing what majority of people would look at you and think, well, this guy is killing it. You're far above what the average person, you know, would be, right? In many people's eyes, you're successful, you're top level, you know. I mean, once you go from that stage, especially forget $1 million, once you go past $10 million in revenue, it's like, okay, this is a different ballgame. What still made you want to take like the peak performance mastery, which the whole point of it is to perform that, to reach that next level of potential? What made you sort of take that step?
Like you said, the like alhamdulillah, and by the way, all credit goes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Would not be here if it weren't for him. But you're doing really well, you're making money, but I just knew there was so much more. And in all of that chaos, I knew that if I were to take the bottlenecks in my life and fix them, I knew that 10 million would become a 30 million. Right?
But why didn't you think it was just like a sales issue or a funnel issue? Like, a lot of the times when people want to scale, they want to make more money, right? They assume, okay, the issue is with the company. Very few times will someone actually turn around and say, you know what, the issue's with me.
At first, I blamed other people within my organization. I blamed a lot of our departments, a lot of our systems. But really, when you look at your organization and you start nitpicking departments or just issues, right? We went over it with my business, right? I started blaming the economy and this and that, right? But then you look at it and you asked me a question. You said, are you going 100% in? And the answer was no. Like, absolutely not. Right? And we all have our versions of 100%. And then some of us have never actually hit that 100%. 100%. So I knew that there was a lot more in me to do the right things and go at it. And so that's what kind of kept me on as a client was the quest to really discover what that 100% of me looked like. And it wasn't completely easy either. The reason why I stayed as a client, right, was because every time you spoke, I always learned something new. And I always felt like, man, this guy has a lot of gold in his brain. Like you honestly have a lot of gold in your brain. I'm not just saying that because we're on a podcast. Like I genuinely would have ran away months ago. But if it weren't for you and what was in your head, and I knew I could not just leave knowing that this guy has so much, you have this much knowledge in your brain. I had to just extract all of the knowledge out of you until I was ready to go. And so this is what kept me on as a client. And even till this day, like I have no regrets about it. Alhamdulillah.
Allah barak. Yeah, 100%. This is, like I said, you were one of our first clients. When we dropped that PPM, we went from that transition from mind control to PPM. And you had to let clients know, like, just to let you guys know, this isn't fully built.
Right.
This is a process, and we want to take you guys in. It's actually funny because majority of the clients that actually stayed with us were the ones that were when we made the LBD switch, which was essentially taking PPM and officially systemizing it. Because PPM, the first batch of clients we took, walillah alhamd, honestly, it was an experiment, man. We've done it before. It worked on clients. But to do it in that way, in the structure we did, was 100% an experiment. And, you guys just proved to us that we were onto something. Walillah alhamd, us and the team were onto something. And then with LBD, that's when, we locked in everything. We made the minor tweaks. We switched the platforms we were using. And so how was the transition from PPM to LBD, right? Because LBD is now about 3 months old, 3-4 months old.
Yeah, so in between PPM, I had a lot of chaos in my business life, which you know very well, which caused me to not be fully there to participate within your program. So I was very in and out of your network, but you didn't abandon me as a client, right? You came out with this LBD, which, to be honest, I just thought it was a whole rebranded PPM, and I was like, oh, there you go, round two with the, and I remember getting an email saying, okay, PPM, like your thing is, you guys are now all done with PPM, but you sent me another email saying, hey, listen, because you were a legacy client, you have dibs on the new program. And,
By the way, in truth, out of all our PPM clients, we only made the offer to 3 of them. A lot of people wanted to resubscribe. Just to give you guys some clarity, every single person wanted to jump on LBD.
Yeah.
But obviously LBD, we're going to explain and go through in a minute. It's a lot more time consuming, right? On our side, the deliverables are a lot higher, etc. So that's where we were like, look, we can't take on everyone. We're going to have to choose our 3. It's all about leverage, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, like you then hopped on you offered me LBD, and I decided to, okay, go with it. with a pretty optimistic approach, but still I had no idea what I was signing up for until we hopped on a call together. One of the first things you said to me was, "Hey, do you have 2 weeks to come out to Dubai?" And I was like, in the middle of my life, my family, everything. I had a quick conversation with the wife and I decided I have 2 weeks. So, because you said something to me, you said, "Come here for 2 weeks. I'm gonna fix you." and that sold me, right? And I said, "Look, there's two ways this can go. I can either continue trying to work with you virtually and try to fix my bottlenecks, or I can completely isolate myself and give 100% of my attention to this program for just 2 weeks. 2 weeks is nothing, right?
100%.
So I said, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, my businesses are not going to collapse. Everything is, alhamdulillah, automated, employees and everything. So I said, you know what? Let me do it. Let me go out there for 2 weeks and just not only participate in your program, but just overall go there with the mentality of just mapping out my entire life."
Look, one of the reasons I actually, again, you are the first of this also experiment, right? You're one of the first of the experiment. But literally, what we've done. Look, the online stuff is amazing, right? And we do get our clients, alhamdulillah, like 85% of our clients are done virtually, alhamdulillah, and they achieve massive results. But from the in-person clients we have over here in the UAE, and there's many, so majority of our bigger clients that would be here in the UAE, literally what we found is the speed in which they achieve is probably like 60 to 70% quicker than the online folks, which is crazy. All right. And it makes sense, right? It's different when you have an in-person session, when it's face-to-face, when you guys can interact with each other. It's much easier. The whiteboard is there. We're fighting through the bottlenecks. Everything becomes much better, right? But when you have a situation where it's virtual, again, the growth is there, but I mean, the online stuff is on a different level. But even in truth, I don't think you've given yourself enough credit, because seeing even your growth from PPM already was crazy. I don't think you remember some of our first calls.
Yeah, I definitely went up a notch just being in PPM alone. There were certain things that, with your whole paradigm of systems thinking and just the emotional control, right? There, almost everything had a process, right? When you controlling your nafs, right? You had a scientific, like a very nice systemized approach to controlling your nafs. Whenever you would think about something, right? There was your thoughts fueled your beliefs, and then your beliefs, turned into your emotions. And you did a great job in PPM. I think the content was golden, but in terms of the clients, we were too chaotic to keep up with the program, I think.
No, that's honestly the truth. I think one thing I found with working with higher echelon of people is, there's actually a book by Stephen Pressfield. He goes, nobody wants to read your SHIT. That's the name of the book. Nobody wants to read your shit, right? And one of the things he says is people are so busy that to make them stop and read, like, you have to give them something so valuable, right? And that's when I repackaged and, recreated the Live by Design framework, where it's like, how do I make sure people stop and read this? Like, how do I make sure clients stop everything they're doing and actually use this, So we took the PPM, we chopped things, we made it nice and seamless. And then we added the new things that we wanted to add on, which was the next step that was always going to be the next step of the PPM. And I believe, walillah alhamd, that's when we realized, okay, the Live by Design thing is, we've hit the gold mine here, walillah alhamd. And that's from you clients. You guys are going to continue to see walillah alhamd on the podcast as well. But I really want to go into, some of these things as well that you've talked about, because I don't think entrepreneurs talk enough about them, unfortunately, right? How has, stress really impacted you in your business, right? Stress is a crazy thing, and it's a thing majority of us feel, and we don't realize the consequences of constantly living in stress and chaos. Talk to us about what that was like before PPM.
So stress is a very interesting word because we all go through it. But I think the way stress really affected me was it created a lot of blockers in my head. So whenever I was stressed, I would naturally start going through the path of least resistance. And obviously, when you're an entrepreneur, the path of least resistance is typically something that's not going to get you much results. And I noticed that the stress would then compound because maybe I have one thing that stresses me out and I'll try to patch it, right? Put the Band-Aid on the stress by adding something that was not as stressful to do. And what happens is I can do like a million things that don't require that much effort, and they're on the path of least resistance, but those 3 or 4 big stressful things are actually making the biggest impact on my business negatively. So in other words, I'm doing a million things. I'm really busy, right? I'm quote unquote really busy. I'm putting all my effort into these little things, but there's like 3 or 4 big things that if I just sat down, mapped it out, and just got it done,
The 20%.
the 20%, I would be so much further. In fact, I don't even need to do those million things. I could have other people doing them for me. I don't even need to. I shouldn't. In fact, I shouldn't be doing those things.
Yeah. So let's. I want to. There was 3 major shifts I seen in your journey. All right. I'm not gonna name them. I want you to sort of think. If you tell us, right, what were the 3 periods, right, that you went through, like major shift? Like, what were the periods for you, like in stages, right? Obviously, this didn't just happen in a day. Right, perhaps of course the 2 weeks was a lever for it to like go even crazier. But what were some realizations? Like maybe what was the first one, for example? Like the first thing was me realizing that whoa, there's a thing called entropy, right, or whatever. So what do you think the like stages like for you were you just like ooh, change, shift? Because it wasn't in the last 2 weeks alone, of course.
Yeah, Sopranola, there was a lot of light bulb moments that got triggered while I was with you here. But I think one of the first things that really triggered that was the average man versus the exceptional man. And we all think about in our lives, we all want to be exceptional, right? Even us entrepreneurs or, people that work 9-to-5 jobs, we all want to be exceptional, and half of us think that we're exceptional, right? Oh, I make $100,000 a year, I'm exceptional. I drive a McLaren, I'm exceptional, right? I have a 8-figure business, I'm exceptional. But the truth is, there's very, very few people that are exceptional. And one concept that you tested out with me was you asked me to count on my finger how many exceptional people I know, and I could hardly count 3 people. And then you asked me, how much time do I spend with these people? And the truth is, I don't spend that much time with them. So the few people that that are exceptional, you barely spend any time with them. And I'm sure everybody is like this.
Yeah, and just to stop you there, Sherry, even, I know the viewers are thinking, oh, you only know 3 exceptional people. We're talking about like top of the range. Like,
yeah, you don't know anybody exceptional.
We're talking about like somebody who's just on it. Not like a guy who's like exceptional isn't, oh, I've made 5 million in my company. Or I drive X car. We're talking about like top of the range. Like people you just see, they're just on it. They're just like, you look at this guy and you think for a second, perhaps this guy isn't human. Like that.
Exactly.
That is what exceptional is.
Yeah, like the best of the best, the top of the top, right? People in life, right? Who have it all, subhanAllah. So yeah, hardly 2 people, maybe, right? And so that's when you highlighted the fact that you cannot be exceptional if you spend your time around average people all day. And that was one of the first paradigm shifts for me was, oh my God, I'm spending my time around average people. And then I asked you, what did I ask you? I don't know that many exceptional people.
So
how do I meet exceptional people? I'm not exceptional. You said you need to study them. You see, I can't walk up to an exceptional guy, even if I'm in Dubai, if I run into one of these exceptional people out here, right? I can't just walk up to them and start talking to them without any value to show, right? Who am I to them, right? But We, on the other turn, can study them. We have the tools and the technology and the books and everything, on our fingertips to study these people. And when you told me that was when three light bulbs went off in my head. I said, oh my God, why am I not doing this 24/7? Why am I, all that free time, all that Netflix, any leisure time, instead of watching TV, why don't you just sit down and study great people? And I started doing that. And not even 24 hours later, I completely started thinking differently.
This is what I tell people. It's crazy, right? Because, okay, for context, alhamdulillah, two men sitting on this chair right now, for example, right, have reached 10 million, right, in revenue. Now we're sitting here, we can spend all our time together, but guess what? We've both done 10 million. So, this is a realization I came to, like every single person around me either has made the same amount of money that I've made or has the similar achievements to me. Now there's people that, of course, they outweigh me in certain fields, but there's very few people that I actually knew that was exceptional. Now, when I say exceptional, by the way, guys, I mean like exceptionality. Like, I always give when people say, oh, what do you mean? I mean like, studying the Salaf, right? The Sahabas, like some of the greatest minds in business. I'm not talking about these little itty bitty guys who've made a couple of, by the way, I'm not saying they're little itty guys, like, they're still well accomplished, right? There's decent, there's good, there's great. And then there's the best. And I'm talking about the best here. I'm not talking about great. I'm talking about the best. And when you look at it, first of all, there's very few of them in the world in general. There's very few genuine, like exceptional minds in the world in general. And then you count how many people even smaller. How much hours? So if more of your hours go to spending time with average people than exceptional people, well, you can expect what you're going to end up with. Right? So maybe you will reach 10, 15 minutes, but are you going to be that A player? Do you feel like you're operating at 100%? No. Right? So this is where I always say, like, that's when I came to a realization, like, I'm trying to make 100 million, and I'm trying to get to 100 million in revenue is one of our goals, right? And I don't know anyone around me personally who's done 100 million, but I can read the books of the guys that have done 100 million. I can study their lives.
That was one of the big things that really established that foundation, was to start studying. In fact, if I'm not studying a great person, I'm so self-aware about it now. I have to ask myself, like, what am I doing? Like, am I doing something better than that right now? If I'm not, then forget about it.
Nah, so what was the next major shift for you? Like, what was the next thing?
The other thing that really stuck out to me was the whole concept of the 80-20 principle. Now, we hear about it. I've heard about the 80-20 principle for the longest time, but I never really, like how you said before, sat down and actually thought about it, right? I never genuinely sat down and, like, this is someone who's revenued well over $10 million in all of their businesses. I never sat down and actually thought, what is the 80% and the 20%, right? But essentially, with the 80-20, right, the whole concept of, like, what is the 20% of the things that you can do to drive 80% of the results, right? And if you actually sat and thought about it, it's not easy to just think, oh, I can easily identify the 20%. It's 20%. It's 2 out of 10 things, right, that you need to sit down and identify. And that only happens when you make some time to genuinely think, what is the 20%? And what often happens is, during my process here, I was able to identify 20% of everything within all of my businesses, all across, between the body shops, between the dealerships, between the real estate. The 20% was like, aha, like it came, right? And then after that, there are certain things that I couldn't do by myself, right? There's certain, without going specifically into the detail, I couldn't get that 20% done without some help, right? Because I wasn't good at these things. So another lesson that I've really learned from you is outsource your weaknesses.
Interesting.
And focus on your strengths.
Yeah. No, that's massive. I think one of the things that we're told all the time is what? Strengthen your weaknesses. Don't be weak. We all have weaknesses. And somebody who's strong in something will still beat you if it's a trained weakness. And a trained a strength that you naturally have will still be a trained weakness. All right. So that's where you need to actually start to learn, well, rather than, spending so much time trying to fix my weaknesses, I just need a who. I need someone who's able to come and just complement remember that we literally drew the word strengths in massive and we wrote weaknesses in such a small bit. The whole concept, and Peter Drucker actually mentions this in his book as well, The Effective Executive. He mentions the whole concept of your strengths being so big that your weaknesses just look tiny. All right. And I see entrepreneurs doing it all the time. They know they're weak at a certain element and they're spending all their time training it. Why are you wasting your time? You have strengths that are so strong, no one else will be able to do those things. That's your 20%, your unique ability, that thing that drives your company forward. Focusing on the other things is silly. Just get a who. It's always behind, how, who, not how, right? Is another great book by Benjamin Hardy and I believe Dan Sullivan as well. Just about focusing on the who. Who is the person that's going to come in and make this change or get us to where we need to get to, rather than how. Right? A lot of the times we're too stuck trying to be multiple things as entrepreneurs. And that's one of the things that we discuss. But it's Sherry, look, this is your 20%. Anything that you're doing that isn't this is time wasted.
You see, as a business owner, and you kept hitting me hard with the hammer on this, but I kept talking about money, right? I was like, but this is so expensive, that's so expensive. Right. But now at the end of this, the most important thing is my time. Right. But time is actually your number one currency in business. Right. And not just in business, but just your life. Right. When we're talking about, okay, am I doing an average activity? Am I doing exceptional activity? You need to audit your time. And we came up with a very nice system, right? That works for me because this is Live by Design. It's a design for a reason. Like your design and my design are completely different. Right? We're going to have so you may watch your podcast and think, because I felt this way just watching your podcast before, man, this guy sounds like he's trying to sell you some scam. But then you're in it and you realize, no, it's called Live by Design for a reason, because 5 people are going to have 5 separate designs, just like we all have 5 separate businesses making 5 million, 10 million, right? They're all different millions, right? Non-intersecting. So ideally, we're gonna have different designs, but they're built from this one foundation, this iron foundation of exceptionalism and being the best.
Yeah.
That's one thing I think you're going to get out of
you're
this
right,
program.
because honestly, speaking truthfully though,
So the podcast is not over, right?
No, just truthfully ignoring all of this, yeah, it's actually a problem we struggle with. Just to even get vulnerable here, it's actually an issue we face, in the marketing. Other people's offer, it's simple, right? If I own a marketing company, I'm going to get you 100 leads, all right? If I run a sales thing, I'm going to book you 750 qualified sales calls every month. But what we sell is so it's not water. It's not a bottle of water I know I'm getting. Sales calls I know I'm getting, but what we sell is so non-tangible. It's sometimes, in our marketing, it's actually one of our biggest bottlenecks in the company. It's just so difficult to define.
Yeah, and it's funny because the intangible things are often the most valuable things, right? So when you're selling me, and there was another thing that you said earlier on. It was imagine how many of us wake up in the morning and check our bank accounts. Now imagine you had a bank account, but for your time left in this world. And you mentioned that every day, right? It's in the Quran that every day we lose a part of ourselves.
As the time passes, a part of you passes as well. Yeah.
So imagine you're just opening up that time account and you're just seeing how many hours we have left. We have, for example, you have 25,000 hours left, and then you look and it's 24,999, 24,998.
It's actually, life is actually like a little time until we die.
And you don't know when that cutoff will be. It could be at 20,000 hours because you don't know when that cutoff will be. So you could have 10 hours left. You could have 5,000 hours left. You could have 20,000 hours left, right? You don't know. But the truth is, time is infinitely more valuable than money.
Yeah.
Because it's so limited. We have no idea how much time we don't have.
And this is exactly why I have such an issue with entrepreneurs spending time on nothing, on like 80 tasks. You know what I always tell clients? The 360 audit is like the equivalent of me living with you for like 2 weeks. It just gives me an opportunity. Weekends, like, it's so funny because clients are even like, you know, by the way, like, you know, the only reason it's even like this decent is because I knew I was auditing it. So at the back of my mind, I didn't want to have to put silly things, that sense of accountability. And still how scary some of those audits are, to see a guy who revenue is 8 figures annually and to see where his time is going on these little bit of loss activities. And just for me, one of the things that I always look for in my client's time audit is uniform. Like uniform, like just the actual things to be uniform, to look relatively the same for some synchrony. And the amount of times it's just sleeping today 3 a.m., 2 a.m., 2 1, 1, 6. So the audit is a big one, man. So what did you find when you actually got done with your audit? Like, and we were going through it on the call. How did you?
So I came out here for 2 weeks to really hone in on my sleep schedule. And in the beginning, there was a lot of inconsistencies with my sleep. And you think because you kind of tell yourself the day is over, it's time to go to sleep, it could be another 40 minutes that you don't get into bed. And then after that, it takes you another maybe 15, 20 minutes, an hour. One day it took me an hour to fall asleep. And so that starts to compound, right? And then you have one day where you're just so tired. And you look back and you're just like, yeah, because you've been sleeping 4 hours every day. How many hours are you supposed to sleep? 7, 8. You're sleeping 4 hours. So there you go. And that was one thing. It was actually yesterday, the most powerful thing you actually said was, you will not be successful like unless you master your sleep. And so besides that, the time audit really tells you that you need to sleep, and you need to look at the activities you're doing before your sleep. And if you are going to sleep late, which I would probably say is after 10 p.m., you need to look at what are you doing before 10 p.m. Are you eating dinner? Are you watching TV? How many episodes are you watching, right? Like all of these things, right, will contribute to poor sleep, which will then, if you have poor sleep, it will creep into your next day.
Everyone is always looking for supplements and this thing to take and that thing. I tell people sleep is the performance drug, right? You meet people who don't sleep regularly, you can tell, right? You see, today, almost everyone has brain fog. Almost everyone is never fresh. You know, things just randomly escape. And people think this is normal. This isn't how human beings are actually supposed to be. And there's another way, all right? I remember one of my clients, Adam, right? He had a big issue. And I finally got on a call with him like the 3 calls ago. I had with him another one from the early PPM days. And I said, you do understand that anything you do right now other than fixing your sleep is a waste of time. It doesn't matter what you work on your business.
That's the 20%.
Yeah. Well, sleep is the 20%. I told him anything you're focusing on right now that isn't sleep, and I told him I don't care about any of your company goals right now. Your fundamental goal from now on is to get to bed on time. He's telling me, oh my God, the business is up. There's so much clarity. Family's good. I feel great. Why do you think that is? All right, because sleep is it's so important. And I'm not even so keen on hours, right? You know me, like I sleep like less than the average entrepreneur. I'm like 6.5, right? But honestly, my body doesn't like anything more than that. And some people are 7, some people are 8. Everyone requires different sleep, but it's about making sure your sleep is regular more than anything. That it's actually routine. You know, and I feel this is where majority of people and clients fail, right? And like everyone talks about the discipline of getting to bed in the morning, getting up early in the morning. It doesn't take discipline to get to bed early in the morning. It takes discipline to get to bed at night on time. You know, when you're supposed to shut off, when you don't want to shut off. You know, so alhamdulillah, I'm glad you realized that, and that's such an important thing. And another thing we obviously realized from your time audit. You know, I was looking at you, I was like, Shehryar, why are you doing this task?
One thing I've discovered while out here was I was giving the wrong people within my organization the wrong thing to do. I was giving this person to do this. I was giving that person to do that. And when in reality, it should have been the other way around, right? And that's one thing that I've learned is you need to be a kingmaker. You need to find out, just like how you said, focus on my strengths. I need to find what the hidden strengths, and everyone has their little strengths that you can utilize, right? And push them in that direction, right? And empower them to get this done. And sooner than you know it, they're going to start to own whatever they do, and they're just going to get it done. Rather than you having to go home and because as the owner, you're always going to do something with more passion and effort because you're the owner. It's your damn company, right? But it's just going to suck too much time. You need to delegate it, and you need to create an efficient system for that person to do it.
I always say your 80 is someone else's 20.
Yeah.
You know, things that are like low leverage for you, someone else's high leverage task, and that's just how it works. That's what all about leveraging. You know, and we always mention this, like there's levels to entrepreneurship, right? And, you know, we both clearly were able to identify, especially when we went into it in detail this morning, like you're at a stage right now where you need to build like a company that's self-managing, that can self-run, because you're trying to, you know, scale vertically and you're trying to grow all the other departments and things. So like you can't be stuck in this one company. Like your company, the various areas of your company have become your 80, all right? And that's what I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs actually have a problem understanding. You know, why? Because they cling on to this thing that was their 20 previously. The thing that was their 20, the things that was high leverage, suddenly now becomes their what? Their 80. It's low leverage. Now they need to jump up, right? And start taking things to the next level, right? And this whole concept of incremental growth, one of the first common things I said to you is, don't do anything that's going to add an extra 10 or 20%, like make you 12 or 13 million. Everything you do right now, only do things that are going to make you 100 million, because they take the same amount of effort, literally. So you can go for the one that's going to do 2-3 million, or you can just do the thing that's going to bring you 100 million. And this is what I always tell clients. It's not as hard as you think to scale. But the problem as to why we struggle to scale is because we look for these small little bits of things, and these things that require a huge amount of effort, but only allow. I remember even in one of the companies I recently purchased, you know, he came on the call and he's given all these ideas and, you know, multiple things. And I'm like, yeah, don't bother. Those things, if they work, the company is going to do what? 20-30% increase in revenue. But long term, it's not scalable. Or we can ask ourselves, how do we 10x this company right now? And us looking at 10x in the company, there's only very few paths we can actually take. It's better for us to take that path.
Yeah, because I think one thing you kind of left out with that is when you're aiming to be the best, because especially back to the exceptional thing, it's a mind hack, right? What really you've taught me out here is how to hack my mind. Just if you're not clear what LBD is, right? Fawaz's program is, it's a mind hack, right? I don't know if I've ever told you this yet, but you've taught me how to actually hack my mind, right? It's all in there, right? We all kind of know what to do, but you just need to, you know, crack the code. You know, it's like a lock, and the code is 1, 2, 3, right? So you've kind of taught us the code to unlock, right, your mind. And when you're thinking, I want to be the best, right? You're thinking 10x, right? And I feel like in the beginning, I sat there and I'm like, Fawaz, what the heck is this 10x? Like, I have these problems. The thing is, when you naturally gravitate towards 10xing, you know what happens? You actually 2x as well. You 2x and 3x naturally because you're so focused on the high leverage. The 2x and 3x takes care of itself.
100%. And this is something we see increment like again and again. And you know, in one of our sessions, right, we talked about this whole concept of different levels as well. And you know, like what do you want to be? You know, I remember I asked you this, like, are you just trying to make some money? Are you just trying to, you know, be a decent, one of the strongest in the automotive, you know, industry? Or are you trying to be the best? You know? And this is a conversation I have again and again with clients, because there's so many, like, I always tell people, like, you don't need LBD if you just want to be cool, average, and, you know, get some things done and make some, you're doing fine already, right? This is for those who are actually like, you know what? I can operate at a far higher level, and I'm trying to get to the highest version of that level. I would say our clients, they're not broken, they're buried, right? They're not broken. These are guys who have made significant, like yourself, they've achieved significant things. It's not that they're broken, they're just buried. There's so much chaos and so much things going on that they're not able to actually actualize this potential that they have inside them. Did you find that within yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what is the pain of knowing like I could do and I could be more, but just not having the ability to like harness that or access it?
I'm going to talk about one of the few exercises you made me do. And actually, you made me, do you remember this? In a journal, you made me write down a future version of myself, a version where I did not accomplish what I wanted to in life. In fact, a version of myself where I failed at a lot of things. And I remember writing down and the immense amount of pain that came from me writing these things down. You know, I failed to scale the company, bankrupt, divorce, this, that, right? Things that like make you may think it's impossible, but you go down in life and you just live with regret. And there's a ton of people like that. And then what you did was you made me write down a version of myself where I actually accomplished everything, right? And I remember just the dopamine that came in my head once I wrote everything down. I remember just the instant hit of dopamine that came. And that's when we started working on the paradigm shift.
It's just, it's so sad, isn't it? Like when you were writing that anti-vision, I'm sure like, you know, certain things just were coming to you like, damn, like, whoa, I really don't want this to happen, you know? And sometimes people don't realize like the enemy is average. You know, I always say when everyone's on their knees, the one guy that's standing always seems tall, you know? When people are fed rocks, they forget the softness of bread, you know? Meaning in a world where average is so average and mediocrity is just, we've labeled mediocrity as what? We label mediocrity as greatness. There's very few people that are actually going to become great, you know? So barakallah feek. So I want to get to, you know, I know we're nearing the end, but there's just a couple of things I want to touch up on before we finish up. And that is like where you are now, all right? Because we spoke a lot about where you were, you know, just the chaos, you know, the messy sleep routine, everything. So where are you right now?
Where am I? I am in a much better place. I think we reset the foundation. We took the foundation out and we put a new one in, a much stronger one. And not only that, but we've had 2 weeks to test that foundation a little bit, right? And although it's not fully tested, because once I go back home, that's when the real test is really going to hit. But I feel, what did I tell you all the time? I feel like that the person that came 2 weeks ago is dead. That's how I genuinely feel. I feel so different. And the crazy part is it's the small things, right? Like with all of these big lessons, there's like little things, right? Energy preservation, right? Like I'm the type of guy where if I'm like in an Uber and an Uber driver starts talking to me, I'm like, I start talking back, right? But that takes some energy, right? And I have like things to do, right? So not in a disrespectful or in a cocky way. I just don't talk back, right? So I had to do things that were against my nature, but I found that they just put more peace. And subhanAllah, right? Anybody that says hello, hi, right? I'm always saying salam, right? In my head, I'm mentally making dua for them. So it's not arrogance, but it's rather, we're on a different path, right? And my path is very focused and concentrated. So please don't talk to me, right? So small things like that, I've really started to just hone down in and practice with. I feel like I'm finding a passion studying people, studying great people. You're starting to talk like them. You're starting to think like them. You're getting addicted to the knowledge that you're receiving. And subhanAllah, like just not only are you absorbing, but you're also taking action, right? Like I told you out here, I had dinner with some really big players just thanks to your just a few little lessons, right, of sitting down and being self-aware, I was able to come to a city that I've never been to and sit down with one of the most powerful families, all because you started to act exceptional, right? So subhanallah, like there's just so much that has changed between 2 weeks ago and now. I feel so excited. In fact, I am very excited for the chaos because I know now we have a design in place, an operating system, you could say, where I can handle it, right? I'm welcoming it because you can't avoid the chaos. Chaos, we're as human beings, we're going to face chaos, death, right? Stress, but it's about how we handle it, right? So I feel a lot better.
I want better. Well, that's fantastic. I'm really glad, like I mentioned, that you've taken this whole step. Walillah alhamd. And even I think it's clear to me, like I told you, like one of the best things for us is just seeing the transitions with our clients. Like they come in at this level, they're already killing it, and just to take it a level higher where they never like they knew they could be something, but it's like I didn't know I even had this much in me. And that's what I always say, you know, like we said, the goal is that the people visit us when they're ready to hop at a new level. When they get tired of this current version of themselves, you know, they knock our door, and then we happily work with them to take them to the next level. And it's the most important thing, right? To a life in which you haven't, you know, fulfilled your full potential is a wasted life, you know, if you look at it. And I told you, like every morning for me, you know, there's construction going on right beside my apartment. I'm looking at these people and they're working hard and they're putting their full potential into what they're doing, you know? And the only thing that separates us is a glass. He puts 100% every time he nails a hammer. Where's my 100% in what I'm building, in the position Allah put me with? So I always say, not only do I feel like it's an obligation on myself to perform at 100%, it's an obligation on me because of the people around me, right? Because of the opportunities I've been given. I have to utilize this potential, you know, because someone else could have got it and he would do a million things, you know, to be where I am, you know. So yeah, any final thoughts? If you have someone who's on the fence, you know, an entrepreneur, maybe he's made a lot of money, you know, very successful, he thinks.
I think if you are an entrepreneur, and I don't even want to say at any level, because after 10 million, I'm still here, right? But if you're an entrepreneur who has not just one, but maybe multiple businesses, and you're starting to hit a level and you're starting to stagnate on that level, and now you're starting to ride the wave of, this business was at a specific level and now we've gone down, and you're just starting to question how I can strategize and make my business grow. People may not fully understand by listening to these podcasts, but I think you just need to come out here and see this guy and take the gamble with your time and just spend 2 weeks with this guy. I'm going back as a new person, subhanAllah. And I'm not just saying that. I genuinely feel like there's going to be a lot of changes between who I talk to and how I spend my time and what I spend my time doing, everywhere from my home routine to my business routines, right? Because that's one thing that we didn't really talk about. You established that foundation in my head. We didn't jump into the business systems first. We first established this is the new man. Now, how is the new man going to address X, Y, and Z? And it's funny because I completely, every little bottleneck in my business, I would have handled it completely differently. But now it's so obvious what I need to do with each and every little thing.
Yeah. You know, clients bother me. They're like, so when are we going to talk business? You know, I tell them all the time, like, you know, business isn't that hard to fix, you know? And, you know, I don't know the inside of your company. Like, I am not in the automotive industry. I can barely probably do an oil change. Right?
Neither could I.
Right? I don't know anything about cars. I just know what a nice car looks like. So I always tell clients that answer lies within you. My job is to just bring it out, you know? And alhamdulillah, this is what we've been able to do. You know, we had, alhamdulillah, we went shooting together as well. We had some nice times, as well. We had the lunch as well. Fantastic times, and I know you got to dig in your question sessions, and we bounced back, man, and it was a pleasure having you here. It was an enjoyable time.
Thank you for having me.
No, really and truly, and we got to run it up again, inshallah. I know now. Now that you have a reason to be back here as well, you're gonna be back here a lot more.
Yeah, we made some moves out here.
Allah Barik. So yeah, Sherry, look, is there any final things you want to say to the people before we close off?
It's always the 20%, right? Every conversation you have, everything that you do, always look for the 20% of things that drive, because it's never going to be 100% of things that you do. It's only going to be the 20%. And it's your job to sit down and really identify the two things that will, like you said, first things first, right? And as soon as you can figure that out, you're going to see a monumental shift in your life. No matter what area you're looking at the 20% in, you're going to see a huge shift.
Well, it's been a pleasure, like I said, having you. Inshallah, we got to grab you on the next one.
Inshallah, Baqi.
So yeah, guys, hopefully you guys benefited. There was a lot of gems. There always is to learn with these podcasts. And yeah, just to give a bit of background again, like, this wasn't an entrepreneur who just got started or, who is new to business, etc. He's been in the game for a long time.
Been in the game. I've had my highs. I've had my lows. And, we just keep pushing.
Exactly. And Sherry had fantastic routines before he came as well. I mean, you're a guy who's always been in the gym. You're very consistent, Allah Barik, with the gym side of things, your nutrition, a lot of these things. So every client's issues fundamentally are always different, right? But it's the areas where you're not taking your full potential that are really, really costing you. Alhamdulillah, we were able to get him to live by design, and he's left with his design, his personal operating system, Wallahi alhamd. And there, guys, of course, we can always build yours, but I must make it clear, if you're not making at least 500k annually and you are not trying to be the greatest in your field, then we can't help you. But if you want those two things, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and you're trying to scale, work less and make significantly more money, then click the link in the description, inshallah, and book a call. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.